Maya had always been a heavy sleeper, but when something starts watching you sleep, your body learns to stay awake. What she discovered in her dorm room S-corner would make sure she never felt safe in the dark again. When Maya first moved into room 237 at Riverside University, she thought the stories were just typical college folklore. Every dorm has its ghost stories, right? The resident advisor had mentioned it casually during orientation, almost as an afterthought. "Oh, and 237 is supposedly haunted," she'd said with a laugh. "Some girl who lived there in the 90s. Don't worry though, she keeps to herself." Maya had rolled her eyes. She was a practical psychology major who'd grown up debunking her grandmother's superstitions. Ghosts weren't real, and she had more pressing concerns like her impossible course load and the fact that her roommate had bailed last minute, leaving her alone in a double room. The first few weeks were blissfully normal. Maya established her routine: classes during the day, studying at the library until late, then back to her room to collapse into bed. She barely noticed the cold spot in the corner by the window, assuming it was just poor insulation in the old building. It wasn't until October that she first saw her. Maya had been lying in bed, scrolling through her phone, when movement in the corner caught her eye. A shadowy figure stood there, translucent but unmistakably human-shaped. Female, slight build, wearing what looked like a nightgown. The figure stood perfectly still for a moment, then began to move in a strange, repetitive pattern. She would walk 3 steps toward the desk, pause, then suddenly clutch her chest and collapse. After a few seconds, she'd stand up and repeat the exact same sequence. Maya blinked hard, certain she was seeing things. But when she looked again, the figure was still there, trapped in her loop. Walk 3 steps, pause, clutch chest, collapse, stand, repeat. Her rational mind kicked in immediately. Sleep deprivation, stress, maybe even a mild hallucination brought on by too much caffeine. Maya made a mental note to get more sleep and tried to ignore the corner. But the figure appeared every night after that, always performing the same tragic dance. Maya researched the room's history and found the story buried in old campus newspaper archives. Jennifer Walsh, a sophomore in 1994, had died of a sudden cardiac event right there in room 237. She'd been alone, studying late for an exam. The medical examiner determined she'd suffered a rare heart arrhythmia, collapsing at her desk in the early hours of the morning. Her roommate found her the next day. The pieces fit. The 3 steps would have taken Jennifer from her bed to her desk. The chest clutching, the collapse, all of it matched the coroner's report. Maya felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. It was just residual energy, she told herself. Jennifer was stuck in a loop. Replaying her final moments was actually kind of tragic when you thought about it. Maya grew oddly comfortable with her nightly visitor. Jennifer's routine was predictable, almost soothing. Sometimes, Maya would even say goodnight to the corner before falling asleep. It felt less lonely somehow, knowing someone else was there, even if that someone had died 30 years ago. But then, everything changed. It was a Tuesday night in November when Maya first noticed something different. She'd been reading in bed when she realized the corner was unusually still. Jennifer always appeared around 11 p.m., but tonight, there was nothing. Maya felt a weird pang of disappointment, like when a favorite TV show gets canceled. Maybe Jennifer had finally moved on, but then she saw her. Jennifer wasn't in the corner. She was standing at the foot of Maya's bed, perfectly still, facing her directly. Not sideways like she usually did during her routine, but straight on, as if she was looking right at Maya. The shadowy figure's head was tilted slightly in what almost looked like curiosity. Maya's blood ran cold. It wasn't part of the routine. This was something else entirely. She closed her eyes, counted to 10, and opened them again. Jennifer was still there, still staring. Maya pulled her blanket up to her chin and tried to sleep, but she could feel those eyes on her all night. Every time she peeked, Jennifer remained motionless at the foot of the bed, watching. The next night, Jennifer was closer. She stood beside Maya's desk, facing the bed. The night after that, she was right next to Maya's nightstand, close enough that Maya could make out more details. The nightgown was white with small flowers. Jennifer's hair was long and dark, hanging limply around her face. But it was her posture that made Maya's skin crawl so perfectly still, so focused, like she was studying something fascinating. Maya tried changing her routine. She stayed at the library until 2 a.m., hoping Jennifer would go back to her corner. But when she crept back into the room, there was Jennifer waiting by the bed. She tried sleeping with the lights on, but Jennifer was still there, just more translucent. Maya even tried sleeping on the floor on the other side of the room, but Jennifer simply moved to stand over her there too. By the fourth night, Jennifer was standing directly beside Maya's pillow. Maya could feel the cold radiating from her presence, could almost sense the weight of that constant gaze. She lay rigid, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too loudly. What did Jennifer want? Why had she broken her routine? Maya barely slept anymore. Her grades were slipping. Friends asked if she was okay, but how could she explain that her dead roommate had become obsessed with watching her sleep? She considered requesting a room change, but something held her back. Morbid curiosity, maybe. Or perhaps she was afraid of what Jennifer might do if she tried to leave. On the seventh night, Maya made a mistake. Exhausted and frustrated, she sat up in bed and spoke directly to the figure. "What do you want?" she whispered into the darkness. Jennifer's head tilted to the other side, like a dog hearing a new sound. Then, for the first time since Maya had been watching her, Jennifer moved. She took one step closer to the bed. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. Jennifer was now close enough that Maya could see her face clearly pale, with dark circles under her eyes, and an expression that wasn't quite sadness, wasn't quite anger. It was something else, something hungry. That's when Maya understood. Jennifer had been replaying her death for 30 years, trapped in those final moments of confusion and pain. But Maya's presence had given her something new to focus on, something alive, something warm. Jennifer wasn't just watching Maya sleep anymore. She was learning what it felt like to be alive, to breathe, to have a beating heart. And Maya had the terrible suspicion that Jennifer was trying to figure out how to take it for herself. As Maya lay there, frozen with terror, Jennifer took another step closer. Then another. The temperature in the room plummeted. Maya's breath came out in visible puffs as Jennifer's cold, translucent hand reached toward her face. Maya hasn't slept properly in weeks now. Every night, Jennifer stands closer, reaches a little further, stays a little longer. And Maya knows it's only a matter of time before Jennifer stops watching and starts taking, because some ghosts aren't content to just replay their deaths. Some of them want to replay your life instead. Some sounds in the dark are meant to comfort you. Others are meant to fool you into thinking you're safe. Liam had always been a light sleeper, but becoming a father had turned him into something else. Entirely a man whose ears were perpetually tuned to the frequency of his 3-month-old son's cries. Every rustle, every whimper, every shift in the nursery down the hall pulled him from whatever shallow sleep he could manage. So when he first heard Sarah's voice drifting through the baby monitor at 2:47 a.m., humming that soft, wordless melody she always used to calm little Oliver, Liam felt nothing but relief. He rolled over in bed, noting his wife's still form beside him, and smiled into his pillow. She must have gotten up before he'd even stirred. Good. Maybe he could actually get a full hour of uninterrupted sleep. The humming continued for several minutes, that gentle, rhythmic sound that seemed to work magic on their fussy newborn. Oliver's crying had stopped almost immediately, replaced by the peaceful silence that every new parent craved. Liam drifted back toward sleep, grateful for Sarah's maternal instincts. God, it wasn't until morning that the first crack appeared in his comfort. "Thanks for getting up with Oliver last night," he mumbled over his coffee, watching Sarah bounce the baby while she waited for her toast to finish. Sarah paused, looking confused. "I didn't get up with him. He slept through the night for once." "'Kay," Liam frowned. "Around 3, heard you humming to him over the monitor." "Liam, I was dead to the world. I didn't wake up once." She shifted Oliver to her other arm, studying her husband's face. "Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" He wanted to believe that dreams would make sense. Dreams would be normal. But the memory felt too vivid, too real. He could still recall the exact melody, the way the sound had filtered through the static of the baby monitor, the relief he'd felt knowing Oliver was being comforted. The second time it happened, 3 nights later, Liam paid closer attention. 2:23 a.m. Oliver's cries pierced the darkness, sharp and urgent. Liam's eyes snapped open, his body already preparing to swing his legs out of bed. But before he could move, that familiar humming began again. Soft, soothing, unmistakably Sarah's voice floating through the monitor on his nightstand. This time, Liam turned his head to look at his wife. Sarah lay beside him, completely still. Her breathing was deep and even, her face relaxed in sleep. Her lips weren't moving, yet the humming continued, gentle and melodic, weaving through the nursery with the kind of loving tenderness that only a mother could possess. Liam's skin prickled. He sat up slowly, staring at the monitor's green display light as that impossible voice continued its lullaby. Oliver's cries faded to whimpers, then to silence. Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. She didn't stir. "Sarah," louder this time. His wife jerked awake, blinking in confusion. What's wrong?" The humming stopped abruptly. "Did you? Or you just ... Double quotes. Liam pointed at the monitor, his words tangling together. "I heard you singing to Oliver, but you were asleep." Sarah sat up, pushing her hair back from her face. "Liam, you're scaring me." Scaring. I didn't make a sound, okay?" They both listened to the monitor. Silence. Not even the rustle of Oliver shifting in his crib. The third time, Liam was ready. He'd started going to bed with his phone beside him, camera app prepared. Quiet. When Oliver's cries began at 1:58 a.m., Liam kept his eyes open, haunting Sarah's still face while that hauntingly familiar voice began its work. The humming was clearer tonight, more distinct, carried a melody. Liam recognized something Sarah had sung during her pregnancy, something she'd hummed while rocking Oliver during those first difficult weeks. But Sarah lay motionless beside him, deeply asleep. With trembling fingers, Liam started recording. The phone's screen cast a pale glow as he held it toward the monitor. The humming continued, soft and loving, while Oliver's cries slowly subsided. Through the phone's display, Liam could see his sleeping wife, could hear that impossible voice that sounded exactly like hers, but could impossibly be coming from her lips. The melody grew softer, more distant, as if whoever was singing was moving away from the crib. Then it stopped. Liam played back the recording immediately. His own breathing filled the audio, heavy and frightened. Sarah's steady, sleeping breaths beside him, and underneath it all, clear as anything, that gentle humming that had no earthly source. The fourth night, Liam crept down the hallway. He'd lain awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, waiting. When Oliver's cries finally began at 3:12 a.m., Liam slipped out of bed before the humming could start. He moved quietly through the house, his bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. The nursery door was slightly open, just as they always left it. Liam pressed himself against the wall outside, listening. Oliver's cries echoed down the hallway, sharp and desperate. Then the humming began. It was coming from inside the nursery, just a few feet away from where Liam stood, frozen in the hallway. The voice was Sarah's. He knew it with the certainty of a man who'd been married for 6 years. Every note, every gentle rise and fall, was exactly the way his wife sounded when she comforted their son. But Sarah was upstairs, asleep in their bed. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs as he stepped closer to the doorway. The humming continued, tender and loving, while Oliver's cries slowly faded. He could hear movement in the room's soft footsteps, the quiet creak of floorboards, the gentle rustle of someone moving near the crib. Taking a shaking breath, Liam peered around the doorframe. The nursery was empty. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating Oliver's crib clearly. The baby lay peacefully, his tiny fists no longer clenched in distress. But there was no one else in the room. No figure bent over the crib, no shadow moving in the corners. Yet, the humming continued for several seconds more, seeming to come from right beside the crib before finally fading into silence. Liam stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at his sleeping son, trying to make sense of what he'd heard. What he was still hearing, even now, a faint echo of that melody lingering in the air like the ghost of a lullaby. He never told Sarah about that night. How could he explain that something wearing her voice was visiting their son in the dark? How could he describe the way their presence felt, both loving and wrong, maternal and alien? The humming still comes 3 months later, always between 2 and 4 in the morning, always in Sarah's voice. It's always when their son needs comfort. And Liam has stopped trying to investigate, because late at night, when exhaustion makes him honest with himself, he has to admit the truth that terrifies him most of all. Whatever is singing to Oliver loves him. And maybe, in this house where sleepless nights stretch endlessly and parental love feels like drowning, that should be enough. Even if the voice soothing his son isn't coming from anything human at all. Sarah never believed in monsters until she found herself following a dead child's rules to keep something far worse at bay. Sarah had always prided herself on being a rational mother. When her 6-year-old daughter Emma began talking about her new imaginary friend 3 weeks ago, Sarah responded with the same patience she'd shown when Emma insisted there were dragons in the garden shed. Imaginary friends were normal, healthy even. Child psychology books all said so. But Mr. Tall wasn't like the other imaginary friends Emma had conjured over the years. The first rule appeared on a Tuesday morning, written in Emma's careful kindergarten handwriting on the back of a grocery receipt. No hall light after 9 p.m. Sarah had found it tucked under her coffee mug and assumed it was some new game Emma was playing. She'd even smiled, thinking it was sweet how creative her daughter S's imagination had become since they moved into the old Victorian house 6 months ago. "Emma, honey, what's this about the hall light?" Sarah had asked that evening as she tucked her daughter into bed. Emma's face had gone serious, her small hands clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Mr. Tall doesn't like it. It hurts his eyes when he's trying to sleep. And where does Mr. Tall sleep?" "In my closet. But only when he's being good. When he's mad, he walks around." Sarah had laughed it off then, but she turned off the hall light anyway. It seemed harmless enough. The second rule came 3 days later, this time written on the bathroom mirror in what looked suspiciously like Emma's lipstick. No running water between 2 and 3 a.m. When Sarah confronted Emma about writing on the mirror, her daughter had burst into tears. "I didn't write it, Mommy. Mr. Tall did. He said, you keep waking him up when you get your midnight water, and he doesn't like being woken up." Sarah felt the first flicker of unease. She hadn't told Emma about her habit of getting up for water around 2:30 a.m. She'd been doing it for years. It's a consequence of the medication that left her mouth dry. But Emma, with 6 children, noticed everything, even when you thought they were asleep. Still, the lipstick on the mirror bothered her. Emma had been in bed all night. Sarah was sure of it. The rules kept coming. No shoes in the house after sunset, found written inside Sarah's work planner. K. No humming in the kitchen, discovered on a sticky note attached to the refrigerator. Close all bedroom doors before midnight, scrawled on the back of Emma's school permission slip. K. Each time Sarah questioned Emma about the rules, her daughter became more distressed, insisting that Mr. Tall was the one writing them, that he was trying to be helpful, that he was teaching them how to live in his house properly. His house, Sarah had asked, feeling cold despite the afternoon warmth. He says he's been here much longer than us. He says the little girl who lived here before knew all the rules, but she went away, and now he has to teach us. Sarah's research into the house's history had been cursory when they bought it a foreclosure sale, too good to pass up despite the property's age and quirks. But that evening, she found herself digging deeper into public records and old newspaper archives. The Whitmore family had lived in the house for 43 years before foreclosing. They'd had a daughter, Lucy, who had died at age 7 in 1987. The obituary was brief, listing the cause as accidental death in the home. Sarah's hands had trembled as she'd closed her laptop. Coincidence, she told herself. Emma couldn't possibly know about Lucy Whitmore, but the rules had gotten more specific after that, more urgent. Never look in the basement after dark, written in crayon on Emma's bedroom wall, high up where her daughter couldn't have reached without a chair. Sarah had scrubbed it off, but it reappeared the next morning, this time in different handwriting, neater, older. Don't let the floorboards creak in the hallway. Found carved into the wooden banister, the letters rough and deep. Always say goodnight to the closet before bed, etched into the bathroom door with what looked like fingernails. Sarah had stopped sleeping well. Every creak of the old house seemed amplified, every shadow stretched too long. She found herself following the rules without meaning to, tiptoeing through hallways, whispering goodnight to empty closets, checking and rechecking that doors were closed. Emma's behavior had changed too. She'd grown quieter, more anxious, frequently glancing at corners and doorways as if watching something Sarah couldn't see. The child had lost weight, dark circles appearing under her eyes like bruises. "Mommy," Emma had whispered 3 nights ago, climbing into Sarah's bed at 3 a.m. "Mr. Tall is getting angry. He says you're not following all the rules." "What rules am I breaking, sweetheart? You keep forgetting to knock 3 times on my closet door before you turn off my light. And yesterday, you hummed while you were making dinner. He doesn't like humming." Sarah's blood had run cold. She had been humming yesterday an old lullaby her own mother used to sing, but she'd been alone in the kitchen. Emma had been at school. "He's watching you, Mommy, even when I'm not here. He sees everything." Last night, Emma had come to her crying, her small body shaking with terror. "Mr. Tall is very, very angry now," she'd sobbed into Sarah's shoulder. "He says you broke the most important rule. He says you looked in the basement." Sarah's denial had died in her throat. She had gone to the basement yesterday afternoon, just for a moment, to check the circuit breaker when the lights had flickered. It had been before dark, barely. But as she'd descended the wooden steps, she'd felt an overwhelming presence. A weight of rage so intense it had driven her back upstairs, gasping. "He says he's going to come out of my closet tonight," Emma had whispered. "He says he needs to explain the rules to you himself. He says if you don't listen this time, he'll have to make sure you follow them the same way Lucy did." Now, Sarah sat in the living room at 11:47 p.m., her daughter finally asleep upstairs. Every light in the house blazing in defiance of Mr. Tall's rules. She'd called her sister, her mother, even considered calling the police. But what would she tell them? That her daughter's imaginary friend was threatening her. The temperature in the house had been dropping steadily since sunset. Her breath now came out in small puffs of vapor, and frost was forming on the inside of the windows despite the October warmth outside. From upstairs came the sound she'd been dreading, Emma's closet door opening with a long, deliberate creak. Then footsteps, slow, measured, too heavy to be Emma's, coming down the stairs. Sarah's hands shook as she reached for her phone, but the screen was black, dead, despite being fully charged an hour ago. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped. In the sudden silence, she heard something that made her blood freeze. Emma's voice, but wrong somehow, deeper, older, speaking words that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Rule number 13, Mommy, the most important rule of all. The lights went out, one by one, despite Sarah having never touched a switch, never tried to leave. And with that final story, we pull back from the abyss. For now, tales of ordinary lives brushing against the extraordinary, the terrifying, the unexplainable, from the shadow that mimics to the voice that calls from an empty house. We've seen tonight how thin the veil between our reality and a much darker one can be. These stories are not just fiction. They are born from real experiences, whispered in hushed tones, and shared to remind us that we are not always alone. And that's the most chilling thought, isn't it? Perhaps one of tonight's stories reminded you of something that happened to you, or to someone you know. A strange occurrence you've tried to forget. A noise in the night you rationalized away. A figure you saw for just a second. The details of your own brush with the darkness are what give this channel life. I invite you to leave your own story in the comments below. Let us know what you've seen in the shadows. If these stories sent a shiver down your spine, show your support by hitting that like button. It helps these tales reach others who need a reminder to check their locks at night. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. We have so many more stories to share, and you won't want to be left in the dark. Until next time, remember that you are not afraid of being alone. You are afraid of the bone-deep certainty that you are not.